I've had the chance over the last 20 and a bit years to work with over 200,000 leaders, and I've got to tell you, there is one thing that stands out with every leader I've worked with who is visionary and adapts fast. They're incredibly audacious. They're very bold. They lean in. They take risks when others shrink back. But it's a specific type of audacity that matters, because obviously in your industry the stakes are high. We're not talking about recklessness or being irresponsible, but the sort of audacity that we are talking about typically is characterized by a focus on revolution as opposed to evolution. And there's an important distinction here, because if we're not careful, we can easily fall into the trap of thinking about strategy as merely being an evolutionary process, continuous improvement. And that's great, but can I suggest to you, it ain't going to be enough when you think of how rapidly things are changing around us right now. In fact, I love this insight from Oren Harari, one of the former business faculty heads at San Francisco University. He said, remember, the electric light never came from the continuous improvement of candles. Right? I love that, because it is so true. It did not matter how good you got at making candles, how long that light lasted, how pure that light was. There came a point where an audacious, revolutionary rethink was required. And honestly, one of the challenges for us all right now, if we're not careful, is you can be working your backside off in your business, and essentially what you're doing without realizing it is making a better candle than you did last year. But the world's moved on, things are changing around us. So what does revolutionary, audacious strategy look like? Now, a book I'd recommend you look at, this I think gives a good picture of what this looks like in practice, is a book called The Disruption Mindset by Charlene Lee. I love this book because it's incredibly practical, lots of case studies in there around how do you do revolution and audacious change in a highly regulated environment where obviously you need to be prudent and sensible. And one of the quotes that jumped out to me when I reread this book a little while ago from Charlene was this quote here. She said, if you're going to gear up for the sort of change and disruption that's facing us all right now, what revolution looks like is prioritizing the needs of your future clients, your future customers over your current ones. Now, that's a mental shift for a lot of us. We get so focused on what's the CX, what's the UX, our current customers, are we delighting them and meeting their needs? And that's great, but do you also have one eye on who's coming and how different they are, what they're looking for, how to be relevant for them? And I reckon the best example I've seen over the years of this whole dynamic, I was speaking at an event just across the river here a little while ago at the convention centre, and it was for the Industry Association of Convenience Store Operators. So these are all the people selling fuel for vehicles. And so there were about 400 people in the room running service stations, and it was all the suppliers as well. And I was the last speaker at the end of a 3 or 4 day conference all around the future and disruption. And the reality, of course, is if you're running a business that's selling petrol or fuel for cars, there's a change that's coming, whether it's electric cars or hydrogen-powered cars or increasingly plug-in hybrid-type vehicles. There's a change that's on the way. And so I remember speaking to the event organizer a few weeks before the conference and said, I know you want me to talk about change and disruption. How honest would you like me to be? Because sometimes the brief from clients is, give them something to think about, make them laugh, that'd be great. But I'm like, I'd rather be honest if I can. And he's like, no, knock yourself out, be as candid as you like. So I'm like, okay. So I got there a few hours before I was speaking just to get a read on the room, just get a vibe. And I was amazed. Every speaker before me that afternoon spoke very honestly about what's coming. No, Kodak-style delusion at all. They know what's coming. In fact, this industry association had done their own modelling to see how long have we got before selling fuel for vehicles is no longer a viable business model. They know what's on the way. But what I loved learning about was examples of revolution happening in this industry right now as we speak. In fact, I learned about, at this conference, a series of these fast-charging EV service stations over in the UK and Europe called GridServe. And so these are on the same footprint. You would normally have a petrol service station, but it's for charging your EVs. But here's the thing. If you're charging an EV from scratch, sometimes that can take, 8 minutes sometimes, all the way up to 26, 27 minutes to do that. So if you've got someone on site for almost half an hour, that retail hub needs to be very different from when someone pulls up, fills up their car with petrol, goes in and pays for it, grabs a bag of chips, and off they go. It's a very different customer experience. So if you go into these retail hubs, this is what revolution looks like. It's like you go inside, they've got properly good restaurants with good quality food. Like none of the hot dogs that have been rotating for 12 years type vibe. Like really good quality food you actually want to eat. You know, you meet your friends and family, charge your cars, have lunch. They've also got these work pods you can hire to have calls or to meet colleagues on the road. My favourite thing is that in these in the hubs, they've actually built these on-site gyms, so you can do your daily workout while your car's charging. Now, what you can't see on that photo is there's a little plaque there on the exercise equipment that says, the electricity you're producing is going into your car. I'm like, but is it? I feel like that's a bit of a gimmick. I don't think that's true, right? But this is what revolution looks like. And now what I found most impressive about this was if you look at this whole industry, they've had a really solid few years financially. And if you've got fuel stations as clients, you would know this. They're typically sitting on very healthy balance sheets. I mean, during COVID lockdowns, and then it was hybrid work, people buying a lot more of their grocery items from their local service station. They've had a really good few years. If you're running a petrol station, you can imagine thinking, look, we know change is coming, but things are good now. If it's not broken, don't try and fix it. Let's kick the can down the road a bit. I could understand that. That's not what they're doing at all. In fact, as I remember as I was leaving that day, the quote that came to mind was this one from JFK when he said, the best time to fix the roof is when the sun's shining. The best time to get ready for change, to be audacious, to be bold, to take risks, is not to wait until the change hits, because then you're in scramble mode. It's to be far more strategic. Another way to put this is dig the well before you get thirsty. That's what audacity looks like. And many of you are in a spot right now where your businesses are stable and flourishing and healthy. That's great. Now is the time to be audacious, not to hang back or play it safe.